I am Adriana and I'm going to talk about a great writer and one of his amazing novels. This great writer is Oscar Wilde, who was known for his works, but as well as his brilliant wit, a flamboyant style, and infamous imprisonment for homosexuality. He was born on October 16, 1854 in Ireland. His father, William Wilde, was a doctor and his mother, Jane Francesca, was a poet who was associated with the Young Ireland Rebellion. Wilde was a brilliant child. He attended the Portora Royal School. In addition, Wilde attended to Oxford, received good class marks from his professors in both classicals and classical moderations. In 1884, Wilde married with Constance Lloyd and they had two sons. After graduating from Oxford University, he lectured as a poet and art critic. In 1891, he published The Picture of Dorian Gray, his only novel that was penned as immoral by Victorian critics, but is now considered one of his most notable works. Some of Wilde's novels were Lady Windermere's Fan, A Woman of No Importance, An Ideal Husband, and The Importance of Being Earnest. Wilde commenced an affair with a young man called Lord Alfred Douglas. In 1895, Douglas' father and his lawyers present evidence of Wilde's homosexuality and his love letters to Douglas, and he was arrested on charges of gross indecency. Wilde was convicted in 1895 and sentenced to 2 years in prison. Wilde emerged from prison in 1897, physically depleted and emotionally he died in poverty 3 years after his release at the age of 46 on November 30 in Paris. The Portrait of Dorian Gray is a warning novel about a beautiful young man, Dorian Gray, who wished and received his wish that his portrait grows old while he remains young and lives a life of a sin and a pleasure. When Dorian arrived in London, he was 20 years old, and he was a very good man with a good manners, respectful, polite. He liked to play the piano, and most importantly, he was beautiful. He was the perfect man for many women. Dorian was orphaned when he was a child, so his grandfather took care of him, but his grandfather beat him and told him that his mother had died because of him. After a few years, his grandfather died and Dorian inherited all his fortune. In the home of his aunt, Lady Brandon in London, the artist Basil Hallward meets Dorian Gray. Dorian is a beautiful young man who immediately captures Basil's artist's imagination and he starts to draw the portrait of Dorian. When Basil finished the portrait of Dorian, Henry told Gray that he had a unique beauty, but Dorian don't believe this. Therefore, Henry told him that he should take advantage for his youth, because he would be old, ugly, and wrinkled soon. His beauty would go with his youth. Lord Henry makes Dorian believe that the only important thing in life is beauty. Therefore, Dorian says that he would give everything because he was always young and his portrait age. He would give up his soul. Henry asks him if he would be sure to do that, and Dorian reaffirms his response. Dorian makes a pact with the devil he sold his soul and the portrait would begin to age. The portrait thus begins to acquire a real existence. One day, Dorian and Henry go to a bar, but Dorian looks a pretty woman. So he went to look for her and tell everything he felt when he saw her for the first time. Sybil Jane, it was that woman Dorian had fallen in love with at first sight. She felt the same for him and they decided to have a relationship, but her brother James didn't not agree with that relationship. However, shortly after they were engaged. When Henry learned to Dorian's against, he began to persuade Dorian to do impure acts, sin, and betrayed his girlfriend. By telling him that marriage was not good and he should go to brothels to have orgies and have fun, as well that Dorian accepted. Days later, when Sybil realized that the change that Dorian had, she asked him why his personality had changed, and all this was because of Henry. Dorian was so upset that he shouted her and told her they weren't getting married anymore. Therefore, that night, Sybil threw herself into a river and drowned. The next day, Dorian learns that the love of his life had died and he felt guilty for his death. His portrait begins to have marks on his face and he realized that his desires come true. Dorian decided to keep his portrait in the attic. Then only he would have the key to see it. Dorian began to forget about Sybil. Dorian became a very sexual man. Gray did whatever it took to have sex with women, and he lied so they were older than he was. Dorian liked to beat him while having sex with men and women. His personality changed so much that Dorian thanked Basil for the portraits having sex, and Dorian fulfilled the sexual desire that Basil had. Dorian was a bad man, rude. He treated badly all the people who didn't want him. As the years go by, the portrait becomes more and more frightening, and Dorian remains young and beautiful. Basil wanted to help Dorian to be the same man as before, but Dorian refuses. Basil insists several times for Dorian to return the portrait, who begs Dorian to repent of his sin and asks him to revoke the desire. In response, Dorian kills Basil and brutally stabs him, and Dorian threw the corpse to a dog. 18 years later, his friends had aged. When they saw Dorian again, they were surprised because he was still as young as they had first seen him. So people started to believe that he was an anti-natural man. One day, Dorian visits Sibyl's grave and feels so guilty for her death that he starts go crazy, hears voices about people make fun of him and how they judge him because of Sibyl's death. Therefore, Dorian looks for help so he can free himself of the pact he made with the devil, and the only person he helps with is Lord Henry's daughter Emily. A short time later, Dorian and Emily have a relationship, but Dorian remains the same, doesn't grow, and Lord Henry begins to suspect that Dorian's physical appearance, and he remembers that Dorian had made a deal with the devil giving his soul in return. Lord Henry looked for a copy of the attic key and found the portrait, but Gray stops him and tells him that this picture of his grandfather. But Henry doesn't believe him, so Dorian tries to kill him. When Henry discovers the portrait, he realizes that the painting is a corpse and tries to burn it, but Dorian doesn't stop him. Dorian prefers to stay in the attic and die burned with his portrait. Days later, Henry realizes that the portrait never got old. It continued as if it were the first day done. I want you to know that I loved reading this novel, and many years ago I watched the movie, but I really preferred the story in the book. It is also the first time I read a novel in English. My experience with this novel was of many feelings of fear, emotion, intrigue, and connection. At first, I was afraid to read it in English because I knew there were many unknown words and slangs, but it was a challenge that I took, and in the end, I won it because I learned many things. I had once heard about Oscar Wilde, but all I knew was that he was a writer of great novels. By researching a little about his biography, I learned many things about him. When I started looking for the books and saw the author appear on the platform, I decided to look for his most famous and criticized novel, to know how different or similar it was with the film. However, really in the film there are many things that the characters don't say, but in the book everything is different because I could imagine more things than in the movie. I recommend that you read this book if you are an open-minded person because the book has a lot of context for adults because there are many good and bad values such as commitment, temptation, lust, betrayal, guilt, selfishness, and violence. You will find an unusual story, but many times this novel is related to the wishes of people in real life. People who prefer to pay millions to maintain a youth that eventually that youth will disappear and those people will pay the consequence for taking risks of change of physical appearance. Dare to read it and tell me what you think about this wonderful novel. Goodbye, have a nice day.